This podcast is a part of the PodMania Podcasting Network. Check out podmania.co.uk to check out more of our great podcasts, features, reviews, match ratings and previews spanning the crazy and diverse world of professional wrestling.
Hello, my name is Simon Miller from What Culture Wrestling, and you are listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast, and you better keep listening to it. Why? Here's why.
You're listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast, a sample of the best pro wrestling podcasts we can produce on our tiny budget. Check us out on Apple Podcasts, Podcast Addict, CastBox, and all other podcast platforms. If it's wrestling you want, check out more of our great content at podmania.co.uk. Let's do this.
Special bonus episode of the PodMania Podcast. I'm your host, Rob Good, and I'm joined, as always, by Garth and Chris. Chris, how are you?
Confused, because I've noticed the trend recently on the internet of be gay, be crimes, which I'm completely down with, but they're very unspecific about what crimes I should be doing. So, like, I murdered someone, and I'm not quite sure that's what they meant.
I just have no words. Garth, how are you?
Confused at that last comment.
Mate, I've just given up. Just what we do is we just. I genuinely don't. That's not me for six. I don't really know what to say to that, Chris.
Not you for six, like this list.
Oh my God! You are so good, Garth. We don't give you enough credit. You are good. You are pretty good at this, aren't you? This whole wrestling podcast malarkey.
It's been a dad come up with these clips all the time.
It's a fucking talent, isn't it? So, obviously, on Sunday, the 10th of May, this coming Sunday, the WWE are going to be giving us their very, very bizarre interpretation of WWE Money in the Bank 2020, where a man and a woman will get the opportunity to cash in a Money in the Bank contract to get a championship match of their choice. Now, what we're going to do today is we are going to give our top 6 Money in the Bank cash-ins. Money in the Bank, of course, has been going since 2005. It used to be a staple of WrestleMania and then became its own pay-per-view. There have been lots of iconic Money in the Bank cash-ins. Some iconic because they've been good. Some iconic because they have been utter crap. And what we're going to do is we are going... Baron Corbin, Damian Sandow. We are going to give you our top 6 Money in the Bank cash-ins. Why 6, you ask? Because 5's too mainstream and Wrestling with Regret does 8. So we are doing top 6s.
Why not 7 then? Or 9?
They're odd numbers, aren't they? They don't seem right to do an odd number, even though 5 is an odd number. Shut up,
6
Chris.
6 is double R number, so shut up.
Yeah. Also, it means we can, in future, just pick 2 each.
That is true. That is true. It works out well. So, let's get straight into it. So, number 6, we have got CM Punk cashing in his Money in the Bank contract at Extreme Rules 2009 on Jeff Hardy. Now, Chris, you chose this one specifically, and you've been a big advocate of this one. Why did you choose this one in particular?
I don't think you quite understand how angry 11-year-old Chris was when this happened.
So talk us through it. Talk about your Money in the Bank roller coaster, as it were.
Right, so I was a fan of CM Punk back in the day. Guy with long hair. I can appreciate that. He likes Pepsi. I also like Pepsi, but we vibe, me and him. And he won Money in the Bank second year in a row. He was world champion last year. I don't know how booking works. So I'm like, okay, it'd be cool for him to happen again. Forgetting that Jeff Hardy, my favourite at the time, because he jumped off big things, and I like that in a man. He was chasing the world championship, finally beat Edge for the world championship after so much bullshit, and then CM Punk comes out and cashes in, and I'm like, no, he finally got the world title, he finally beat Edge, the bastard, and now he has the championship. And like, to be fair, it's partly here because of how mad it made 11-year-old Chris, but also, oh my god, the storyline it set up was incredible. Like that summer of Hardy and Punk feuding, people seem to forget how amazing that feud is, like, and how natural that feud was. And it's because let's be honest, Jeff Hardy's never cut a good promo in his life. It was like all the great promo work in that feud was down to Punk, and quite frankly, with a lot of Money in the Bank cash-ins, they're kind of samey, so you can't really just go with cash alone. I think part of it does have to be what happened afterwards, and because of the amazing feud that happened afterwards, I think it can't really be denied when stacked up to the other ones.
Garth, do you remember anything about this cash-in?
The only thing I really remember is, and I watched it back before just to make sure I wasn't thinking of something else, but I always remember the look on Punk's face when Hardy kicks out the first go to sleep. Because I remember, like, I can't remember watching it live at the time, but I remember watching it thinking, shit, this cash-in's going to go tits up. And obviously he hits the second one, but does it, and Hardy sells it quite well, because obviously Hardy's screwed up after the match, but I always remember the camera, like, zooming in on Punk's face, and he was absolutely like, what the fuck? I was like, I didn't really care about Punk winning.
I'll fight you.
I mean, going off what you said, Chris, they were the complete antithesis of each other. You had the straight edge superstar against the person who was so deep into drugs and stuff, and just he had that entire dark side of him. It worked so well into a natural storyline.
So deep on drugs that Sting had to literally force him to lose a match.
Oh my god, the greatest main event in TNA history. This was 2 years in the future for Jeff Hardy. It was a horrible little foreshadowing, I think. But yeah.
And then, have you seen the video of him in a diner saying, CM Punk, I made you a motherfucking superstar?
Yes. Jeff Hardy certainly was approaching rock bottom in this sort of time.
The amazing part about that video was then Matt Hardy was also off his tits as well, and was just like, because CM Punk was dating Melita at the time, and he was just sitting at the table going, I do not know about the relationship status of Amy Dumas. And it was like, oh god, it's like 5 years later, are you not over her yet?
Yeah, it was heartbreaking because at the time both CM Punk and Jeff Hardy were babyface, but everybody, taking, aged 11 Chris as our demographic, everybody absolutely loved Jeff Hardy and wanted to see him to ascend to that championship position, that position that had always, eluded him until this time. He'd finally beaten Edge, which Edge was a prick. Amazing, but a prick. And to have this cathartic moment of finally doing these things, to then have CM Punk come in and ruin everything, irrelevant of him being a babyface, the involuntary reaction of a lot of the fan base was, what the fuck is this prick doing now? Leave our Jeff alone. Leave our Jeff alone. I mean, it's unfortunate that it was so... that aside from the storyline that it provoked between the two, it's not really that memorable, is it?
It's a generic Money in the Bank cash-in, but when you get to this sort of stage of Money in the Bank cash-ins, they're all kind of the fucking same. Like, you look at the Punk one from the year before, the Edge one, like, for the most part, like, there's only so much you can do with this formula, and it's either you can cash in beforehand, which you'll see later in this list, and also in the case of like Lesnar and Kofi, which was a dumpster fire, which might as well have been a surprise cash-in, or like something like this. So like I think at this stage of the list, you do kind of need to assess how the storyline it created. Because like, what did this beat out? This beat out Edge on Taker.
Yeah, that was the other option to go in at 6. Yeah,
which in the same vein caused a decent story, but also like is also just a normal cash-in.
Yeah, I mean, don't forget that such classics as Jack Swagger cashing in his Money in the Bank ladder contract didn't make this list somehow. Spoilers. So
yeah, it's weird though that Jack Swagger. He strikes a remarkable resemblance to Jake Hager.
Yeah, he seems to have fallen off the face of the earth, doesn't he, that Jack Swagger?
Yeah, I wonder where he is nowadays. Like, rumor is his wife doesn't let him in the house if he doesn't win matches, and he hasn't won a match with the wife's.
That is true, actually. After he lost to Moxley, I wonder if she did let him in the house.
I mean, like, you don't want to be homeless during COVID-19, do you?
Absolutely not. Moving on then, let's go to number 5. So number 5 is Dean Ambrose cashing in his Money in the Bank contract the same night he won it at Money in the Bank 2016. Now, I was a huge advocate for this to go in because this, similar to you, Chris, it was notable for it being a same night cash in, the second same night cash in after Kane. But not only that, it was the culmination of a storyline because obviously Seth broke up the Shield, would then go on to become champion, would then lose it due to injury, would then beat Reigns for it, but before this, Dean had the feud of the year with Seth on the back of this Shield breakup, and Seth had always managed to squirrel away from it, had always managed to come out trumps because of, J&J Security or the Authority. We all remember those storylines. But this moment where, the wacky, not to be taken seriously Dean Ambrose not only wins the Money in the Bank contract, but then cashes in the same night during a match with Reigns. So you've got that, because don't forget, at that point, the Shield triple threat hadn't happened. You'd got that ghost Shield triple threat. It was one of those moments where the entire place erupted when it happened. And yet, was it the best cash-in? No. Was it the best title reign? Let's be honest. No, it wasn't. But for the moment it brought, again, like the Punk one in the previous entry, the moment that it brought, the storyline that it brought forward and would ultimately come to an end, worked. I thought it was great. And I know that me and Garth reviewed this on a retro pay-per-view. Go and check it out in the archives. And, we loved this moment. It was, the high point of the pay-per-view because Dean deserved this moment. He was no longer just wacky, I'm going to squirt you in the face with mustard, Dean Ambrose. He was the fucking world champion. It added an entirely new side to him. Garth, what did you think of this?
Yeah, like you say, like when we reviewed it and we watched it, it was sort of that immediate pop, and because it's the swell before it as well, like you can see this fans slowly sort of getting up, and because of the history and because of all the times that Rollins had squirmed his way out of it, like the chicken shit heel he was, it was always those near misses, so they all built up to that moment. So when he got it, it was like everyone was happy, but it was also kind of relief. It was like finally, like the good guy gets the gold in the end, and it was, and I think it's something that's what's good about the Money in the Bank when it's done well, and it's something like that. That's what makes it a good thing. Sometimes they don't go that way though, and that's when it sort of outstays as well. But this time was perfect because, like I say, it was the same night, and Rollins had avoided sort of Ambrose all the way before this. And that night when Ambrose won it, it was like, no way. Like, I remember watching it and thinking, is he going to cash in tonight? Because obviously he's wanted Rollins all this time, and when he does, it was like yes, like when you see him cash in, it was like fucking get in, like it was really good.
Chris, what about you?
I'm really conflicted about saying like cash-ins, but what you sort of need to come back to is that a long-term Money in the Bank holder has to be a heel, because at the end of the day, it's a heel tactic to cash in Money in the Bank.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, with Ambrose, this is really the only way to make sense of him cashing in. I remember, again, naturally set up the Shield triple threat. It's normally quite hard to set up triple threats. And it's also hard to remember a time where Shield storylines weren't fucking tired. Like, they really milked the Shield for everything they were worth by the end of the WWE run. Like, where they had, like, one natural reunion and then, like, it just continued being wank for a long time until Moxley left. But, yeah, like, a naturally set up triple threat because Roman had a rematch for the title he just lost. Seth got pinned by Ambrose and also had a rematch. It was like, we still have a rematch. I'm the champion. Yeah, sure. What people seem to forget is in the lead up to that triple threat, Reigns was off TV because of drugs.
Took his dope.
But yeah, like, I don't think this would have been half as special if it wasn't on the same night and like without the context surrounding it. Because you think of the other same day cash in, I'm like, oh yeah, Kane won, and they did a weirdly contrived thing to enter an Undertaker feud. And like, to be fair, imagine like Kane carrying around a briefcase. Oh, I can now. He's a mayor, so I guess he does. But still, yeah, no, there's another one where it's not a ton to talk about. It's sort of standard cash in, really.
So, let's move then to number 4. And number 4 on this list is Rob Van Dam, who cashed in his Money in the Bank contract at ECW One Night Stand. Famous, of course, for that main event against John Cena. If John Cena wins, we riot. He is the first, and to my knowledge, the only person who has given their competitor, or the person they're going to challenge, prior knowledge of the event that they are going to challenge for. Challenge at, should I say.
Didn't Lesnar do that with his Money in the Bank?
Was that the same thing? Let's have a look. Let's have a look.
I mean, it was definitely billed beforehand. Also, Cena did it with CM Punk.
Did he? Let's have a look.
Yeah.
He was definitely the first.
Yeah, I mean, he was definitely, because he was only the second holder. Cena definitely did it out with Punk. He won Money in the Bank and then said, Punk, I'm giving you till Raw 1000. We're fighting at Raw 1000 and I'm cashing this in.
Is that when he lost it because someone got DQ'd? Oh no, that was 2012. When he held it for 8 days, then cashed in, then didn't win it because he won by disqualification, which I think is brilliant. Anyway, this cash-in was iconic. Not only did it happen at the home of ECW, but that fucking crowd. That crowd were absolutely rabid. I mean, he won the contract at WrestleMania 22. He then held it for 70 days, gave John Cena the notice, I'm coming for you, buddy. And it wasn't quite at the John Cena wins lol point, but I think everyone just assumed, are they going to put it on Rob Van Dam? The stoner? Really? But then obviously that moment where he wins, admittedly because of Edge shenanigans, dressed as some manner of motorcyclist, but I don't think that took away too much from it.
Him and having the fast count.
Yeah, I still don't think, in the grand scheme of things, the grand scheme of this cash-in, you talk to people about it, they don't automatically go, yeah, but he only won it via Edge. Yeah, but he only won it because of the Heyman fast count. No, people remember it because of the way that it was done, where it was done, and the fact that, you know, Rob Van Dam won at ECW. You know, it was that story beat.
Yeah, it sort of goes back to Money in the Bank being a heel tactic. So, like, if you have a big face like RVD hold it, that's probably the best way to do it. Doing it on home turf. What people seem to forget is how weird One Night Stand 2006 was compared to 2005. And 2005, you had, like, honest to God, ECW matches, like you had Masato Tanaka versus Mike Austin match. It was like a natural ECW card. And then this year, you had Randy Orton versus Kurt Angle for some reason. Because to be fair, half of the ECW roster had signed to TNA. But yeah, like it was essentially a one match card for this because like the rest of it was wank, really. And in terms of like a crowd, like that image of John Cena holding the title up, head down, like the shadow of his cap covering his eyes, like the only crowd I think that hated Cena more was against CM Punk in Chicago. Ironically, out of Money in the Bank pay-per-view. It was amazing. I mean, it was a really good match. The sequence where Cena's trying to throw a shirt into the crowd, throwing it back. And
I forgot about that.
Other crowds have done that since, but it's just not as perfect because like
it's because it was like it was as if it was like the ECW Rebels.
Yeah, you know what's even more amazing? You can see some people because they're mad looking at the t-shirt thinking, I kind of want it, and then seeing a bunch of angry New Yorkers around them. It's like, if you don't throw that back, it's like,
I'm gonna fucking rip it off.
Yeah. And then someone wiped their ass, someone wiped their nose after the guy wiped his ass. It was all disgusting, but like it was a different time. So,
Garth, what did you think?
Same sort of thing. I loved the fact that he called him out, laid it down, and said this is going to happen. And I mean, because Cena still kind of heel then?
No, he was babyface ever since his feud with JBL. Everyone like if you look at the main before that, it was
because RVD was obviously sort of like the good, not the good guy, but like the fan favorite.
It's sort of like, it's so used to contextual babyface. Like for example, in the Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels feud, Shawn was like face in America and then really heel in Canada.
Just the fact he calls him out, gives his little promo, and then just gives John Cena a slap, and then they have a big brawl, and then obviously the match. I loved that match; like it was really good. But it's the bit where obviously Cena, it's the build up to cashing in, where Cena's in the ring, and it's another one of those ones where Cena's in the ring celebrating with his belt, and then RVD's music hits, and he's just like, "Oh, what the fuck?" As if to say, like, "What's this guy doing?" Like, how dare he come in? And then RVD comes in, and the crowd go mental. This is when RVD was great.
Because people love RVD. Like you look at, like when you're a kid, he's one of the guys you always jump to on like SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. Like you look at so many different career modes, but all using RVD as their main guy.
I'm sure as well. I remember reading or even an interview with him. Like at this time as well, he was carrying like a calf injury or something, so he wasn't even at 100%. But that match he had with Cena was just vintage RVD.
It wasn't vintage RVD. It wasn't like a Jerry Lynn RVD.
Well, yeah.
Cena.
I get that from Cena.
Not 2006 Cena, no.
Like 2015 Cena hits different. That's all we're saying.
But no, it was just because it was a bit different to most of the others on the list.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they should do something like that a bit more, just to. I know that they like the fact that it's a surprise. It keeps you tuning in. I mean, look at the Carmella reign, for example, where she held it for nigh on a year. I think it's good to say, right, well, there's the contract. I'm cashing in. In fact, Braun Strowman did it as well, actually. He did it before SummerSlam, where he It was the worst cash-in. The worst cash-in.
One of only 2 failed cash-ins.
There's been more than 2.
There's been 4.
Sandow, Punk, Corbin.
Oh, yeah.
There's been
Corbin
4.
as well,
Not Punk, Cena, Corbin. I think that's it, to be fair. No, didn't one of the women's fail?
No, there's been no women's failures at the moment. There has been 23 attempts in total of Money in the Bank cash-ins, with 19 successful cash-ins, with a success rate of 82.6%. All of the failures have been males. All 3 of the women's Money in the Bank cash-ins have been successful. Carmella, Alexa Bliss, and Bailey. So yeah,
well, Alexa Bliss's one was actually fairly fucking sick because she interfered in the Ronda and Nia Jax match and stole the title, and then like a month later got destroyed by Ronda.
Correct, she did. So let's move on then to number 3 on our list. Now this is another one that Chris really, really wanted, and with good fucking reason. So we have got Dolph Ziggler, the Raw after WrestleMania 29. This was... You talk about crowd reaction. And the crowd after WrestleMania 29, throughout the show, were just chanting Dolph Ziggler's name. Just over and over and over again.
And yes, they did yes a lot.
They did. But the Dolph chant, bearing in mind this is the same Dolph Ziggler who's completely irrelevant now, that noise was absolutely... And then when he runs down and cashes in on Alberto Del Rio, then almost fucking loses because, you know, the WWE had been a little bit hesitant to pull the trigger on this guy, and he manages to overcome the odds. You know, Alberto Del Rio has got this armbar locked in on Ziggler, and you just assume, oh, fuck, Ziggler's going to lose, isn't he? But he wins, he beats Alberto Del Rio, he cashes in, he becomes the champion. And it was just a massive, almost an exhale around the building, because people just assumed that Ziggler was going to fail, and he didn't. He was the big babyface, and he won. It was amazing. Chris?
I thought...
Sorry. Yeah, it's super weird. Like 2012, 2013, I saw my peak WWE fandom, and then they decided to become really, really shit. It's like the Del Rio reign was falling really flat because Del Rio just does not work as a babyface in WWE because he doesn't try in WWE. Like the reason he's a good babyface in say like Lucha Underground is because he tries in Lucha Underground. So like no one was really accepting him. He had sort of a wank match the night full of swagger. And like the WrestleMania, that 29 crowd was unforgiving.
Mm-hmm.
Like seriously unforgiving. Like boring chants throughout the whole night. The Mexican ways, like this reputation that post-Mania crowd had. This is sort of where it came from. Like yeah, it was bad other times, but like they weren't nearly as reckless as we were here. And then WWE tried to spin it into a PR thing, and people were like, now we're going to make it worse. What's the worst? Oh, yeah, it's when it was a women's match. Actually, I think it might have been in this one. It was like Nikki Bella, Brie Bella, AJ, and Naomi, I think it was. And they were chanting, like, you fuck Cena. Or like, you fuck Punk. You fuck... shit like that. And, yeah, so like, to see this crowd like honestly got popped or something was amazing. Like people seem to forget how like over Ziggler was. Because like this is like when Ring of Honor was still fairly niche. And shit like that. This is before like indie became like the new way of things. So like Dolph Ziggler stood out, whereas now he's sort of like he comes off as just some generic indie geek who wouldn't even get over in like Rocky Discovery, my local fed. But like back then he seemed special, and it was like, oh, he's anti-authority because he put heel on his tights, so that must be so bad. No, like in our heads thinking this wasn't all fucking pre-planned, but still And then he came out and it's like, oh my god. And then like when that armbar was locked in, I was like, no. Like everyone thought, because like the precedent had been set the year before. Cena lost his Money in the Bank, and Dolph Ziggler was a lesser man than Cena. Although Dolph Ziggler had beat Cena to retain his Money in the Bank, it's all a bit weird. AJ was involved somehow. Big E was there, but he became world champion, and it was great. And then he got concussed and lost it. Paid that, but still.
Just to give you an indication, if you haven't seen this cash in, the phrase blow the roof off the place is a little bit of a tired trope. You know, you think, oh, well, that's a mildly big reaction. You just assume that they blow, because WWE fans at the moment, they're not the most vocal in positive ways. You know, it doesn't feel like things get the big reaction. Honestly, this is up there with the biggest Raw moments, the biggest Raw pop that I can think of in modern WWE. I mean, you think about post-Mania Raw, just post-Mania Raw, can you think of any that are bigger than Ziggler's pop? I mean, you've got Lesnar's return, which was enormous.
Ryan coming out after he finally won the title.
Yeah, absolutely. But I still think that Ziggler pop is up there. I still think the Ziggler pop is up there. The Rock's return, I still think Ziggler's pop was big because he was that over at that point. The fans had taken over Ziggler and the fans had claimed Ziggler as their own.
I think when he won the championship and Pop it was another one where it was relief because everyone thought, shit, he's going to lose it, and then he didn't. And it was like a relief as well, like a sigh. But what I liked about it was the fact that before Ziggler had come out, Del Rio had his match, and then he was selling the injury to his leg. And then Ziggler came down straight away, worked the leg, and that's how he got out of the armbar, because he twisted the ankle or he punched his leg or something like that, his injured leg. That's the only way he would have ever got out of it because of that injury, and that's pre-planning was really sort of well thought out, and that's like, I think that played into the whole story that the fans were on as well. They would take on this match that Del Rio had and the injury, then knowing that Ziggler could have lost out there if it wasn't for that injury, sort of thing. It was just like a whole sort of relief and joy at the same time that their man was getting the thing, because at that time Ziggler was getting like a massive push, and he was delivering. His matches were good, his promos were really, really good. He had Big E and AJ with him, right?
Yeah.
And they were all really working really well. It was like a sort of perfect storm of stuff. So it was really good, passion, really good sort of time for Ziggler as well. I've never disliked Ziggler. I've always kind of liked him. He just sort of meddles around.
He gets some attention nowadays because he refuses to change. Like, his character hasn't changed in years.
Yeah.
Like on the Young Lion, we used to rant about Goto's lack of character change. Ziggler's worse.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's sort of desperately clinging to this moment in WWE where he was possibly, aside from Daniel Bryan, he was the most over thing in the company.
It's not just Punk at the time, but also the weirdest thing about the most annoying thing about it is because before, you could draw comparisons to a Shawn Michaels because you used to see the kit, but you could also draw Mr. Perfect comparisons. You could draw multiple comparisons with Ziggler, and now it's literally just he's trying to be Shawn Michaels. Like, the amount of times he does for hanging on the 1 foot touching the floor in the Battle Royal spot, Shawn Michaels did that once in his whole fucking career, and it was the biggest thing ever. And then Ziggler just keeps doing it. Like, it's the BP Priestley problem of he doesn't seem to understand that just because people enjoy seeing moves done by other people, it doesn't mean it's getting you over. I don't know, half the time he's only ever decent as a foil to a more overpaid person now, and he's never going to be 2013 Dolph again. He's not ever going to be 2016 Dolph again, which is fine, but just retire, man.
Yeah, for me, 2016 in that feud with The Miz was probably the last time Dolph Ziggler was close to anything even approaching relevancy.
You know who he was dating around that time?
Nikki Bella.
No. That was in like 2010. Around that time, he was dating Amy Schumer.
Who, sorry?
Yeah.
That's
Have you ever seen? I saw an interview of it. Do you want to know why they broke up?
because he's a shit comedian.
No. Well, let's be honest. Amy Schumer would have no means to.
Oh, I've heard this. I've heard this.
Do you know why Amy Schumer broke up with Dolph Ziggler?
I do, yes.
Why is it then?
Because he was too athletic in bed.
Yep.
Now that
Smashing that too hard.
Yeah, that is the greatest ex-girlfriend comment you can ever have. I mean, fair play, Amy
I wouldn't
Schumer.
be surprised if it was just a really amicable breakup and he was just like, look, can you put me over on your way out?
Yeah, for once.
Listen, mate, I'm on my way out the company. Will you just put me over?
Like,
Literally.
it's the thing with this. You put over someone before you head out of territory. So
Right.
Makes her sound like a proper lazy cow in bed.
I like how we made a bunch of like reference and then Garth said, so, in all seriousness, though, it sounds like he was shit late, so like
Oh, well, he went to Uzi, didn't he, afterwards? Didn't he go to Sonny after that?
Did he? Huh? Oh, no, yeah. This is a rumour I've heard. I don't know if it's confirmed. But...
I'm sure Sonny confirmed it.
Yeah, to be fair, it's a super weird one, though. Like, it's sort of like how you'll go see your favourite bands in the 60s, but if actually know they're going to be bad.
Are you comparing Sonny to Led Zeppelin?
Well, Led Zeppelin aren't band anymore. More Sonny to Paul McCartney. But
Like the Who.
Or the Who, yeah, good point. Anyway, let's move away from the horrible comparison of Sonny to all of our favourite 60s bands and move on to number 2. And for me, these top 2 are relatively interchangeable. I think they're both iconic for different reasons. But at number 2, we've put, unsurprisingly to some of you perhaps, we've put Edge at New Year's Revolution 2006. Not only was this the first Money in the Bank cash-in, and it is worth saying that ladder match from WrestleMania 21 between Edge, Benoit, Jericho, Shelton Benjamin, Kane, and Christian, for me, is top 3, if not the greatest Money in the Bank ladder match. I can't really think of any that are better than what they did at WrestleMania 21.
To be honest, I think your favourite Money in the Bank ladder match is your first Money in the Bank ladder match.
Yeah,
the first time you see one, it's going to blow your fucking mind.
It was brand new as well.
It was brand new, yeah.
I watched that shit live, and it absolutely fucking blew my mind.
The first wrestling match I ever watched was a Money in the Bank match.
Nice.
It was
after that.
WrestleMania 23. What was it? It was the Hardys, Edge, Finlay, Mr. Kennedy, Booker, and
Orton.
Randy Orton, and someone else, and it was amazing.
Mr. Kennedy won.
Kennedy won, and then failed a drug test, so Edge had to take the briefcase off.
Yep. He is the only wrestler to lose the briefcase without cashing it in. So, what an excellent statistic for good old Mr. Kennedy.
Yeah, what an asshole.
Kennedy.
Punk. That was the other guy in it. Anyway, yeah. So it's super weird how it happened because the Elimination Chamber finish, and there's no precedent for how this Money in the Bank could be used. So like. Vince McMahon came out going, someone wants to cash in their Money in the Bank, and it's like, oh, I wonder who it could be. Oh, this really edge-shaped person just walked out, and yeah, 2 spears, and it was a good one.
That's the best thing about that. That's what I liked about it at the time. It was just like, it was unprecedented. So you nobody actually knew the rules, which had changed since obviously then. And it was like, he came out, he was the heel. Nobody knew what to do. No, like the crowd didn't even know what the fuck to do. They didn't know whether to cheer or what was going to happen. And then he obviously comes out with Lita, and it's like you say, like, wham bam, thank you, man. Pins Cena gets a win, but the crowd are like cheering. It's like, hang on, isn't Edge the bad guy here?
Yeah, but also like Edge was this guy who's been around for ages. I mean, they really gave him a proper shake with as a singles guy. Like, he held the IC title, but I in the mid 2000s, you can handicap that as a good thing. What gets me is that we did the same thing like 5 years later with Batista, but he had no Money in the Bank match, so literally for no reason Vince just came out and said, yeah, there's one more guy to face you, and then Batista comes out for no reason.
So part of the reason this sticks out for me was because I want to read out the rest of the card of New Year's Revolution to you. So this is what we had. We had Ric Flair defeating Edge for the Intercontinental Championship. So Edge had already lost in the opening match, and it was a really good match. Then we had Trish Stratus versus Mickie James. Jerry Lawler defeating Gregory Helms. Triple H beating Big Show. Shelton Benjamin, with Mama Benjamin, defeated Viscera. Ashley Mazzaro defeated Candice Michelle, Maria Kanellis, Tori Wilson, and Victoria in a bra and panties gauntlet match.
What did you rate that one?
That was the third longest match on the fucking card.
It sounds like you watched this, so what did you rate that?
That was a dud. That was a dud.
Oh, dud. Oh.
Yeah, 100% dud.
No factors at all?
No, nothing at all. So we then get to the Elimination Chamber match, and it's John Cena, Carlito, Chris Masters, Shawn Michaels, Kane, and Kurt Angle. And it starts with John Cena, who is the champion at the time, but he opens the chamber with, I think it was Shawn Michaels. So not only has he been through an Elimination Chamber, he was number one in the Elimination Chamber. He started the Elimination Chamber, managed to fight off all these people to retain his championship, and then, there's this big reaction when John Cena wins, because John Cena is still over in 2006. People aren't chanting John Cena sucks just yet. And then suddenly, Edge just walks in and goes, in a bit, mate, 2 spears, bang, done. And for me, this is where the Ultimate Opportunist was born. And it was such a great fucking gimmick. It really was. And he played it as more than just a nickname. And this, for me, was the making of Edge. As Edge, the character of Edge, the person who would go on and be one of, in my opinion, the greatest superstars in modern WWE. This was great.
You look after this, so like, this was 2005. I think I'm right in saying between 2005 and 2011 there was a year where Edge was world champion at some point in it.
Yeah. Also the year where he didn't fight Cena about 10 times as well.
I was just going to say that feud.
Like 2006 he was champ 7, 8, 9, maybe 2010. Was he champion at all in 2010?
Was 2010 WrestleMania 26?
No, he was. He did. Yeah, no, he was in 2010 because he beat Kane. And then he went into 2011 as champion.
Legend.
So Edge wins low.
Yeah. Do you know what? For me, the fact that you didn't have that Preston, which you've already said, Chris, the fact that it's still unique to this day, they'll probably never do that again. And the fact that it was, as they always say, you always remember your first. This was iconic for all the right reasons. It went to the right person. They played it perfectly, and it led to, aside from Punk, probably John Cena's greatest rivalry.
I'm gonna say that the rivalry between Edge and Cena was better, but the matches between Punk and Cena were better than the matches Edge and Cena had.
Yeah, I think it was one of those ones where it was like, at every corner for either Cena or Edge, the other one was there. as a stumbling block to every championship at the time. There was always that feud that would happen, and it became quite a sort of endearing thing for them because you knew it was going to happen, and they didn't have bad matches. The matches were always decent, but the feud itself was the attraction, and that was their promos and their stories and stuff, and it was always like you knew it was coming, but you knew you were going to have fun with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they made each other better as well. I know that Edge certainly elevated Cena, and I think Cena got better in the ring by being with Edge, and they constructed great matches. Because Matt Hardy's been in interviews, and Edge has been in interviews, and he said that if, it was him versus the Hardys or whatever, it'd be those two that would put the matches together. And if Edge was the leading force in putting the matches with Cena together, it makes perfect sense. And I think Cena's benefited from that, from having this arch nemesis that he could never shake. It's like Batman and Joker, isn't it? Without each other, they'd be lost. So I think that sort of worked in their favour, and I think this was the real start of it, and I think it worked for him. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our eagerly awaited number one Money in the Bank cash-in. And of course, the answer is Damien Sandow. 2013, waited 106 days to cash in on John Cena and lose, becoming the first person to lose a cash-in.
Cena had already lost the cash-in.
No, Damien Sandow was first.
No, Cena was first. Cena was the year before, was 2012.
No, Cena won, but by DQ.
Oh, right. Okay. Never mind. Continue.
Do you know what? I knew you'd say that, and I've got it written down. I mean, if you want to be technical about it, John Cena did technically not win Money in the Bank. Well, he didn't technically cash in his contract, but he did it. He won just via DQ. Anyway, of course we're talking bollocks. It's Seth Rollins. It couldn't be anything else at all. That cash-in, that moment that he runs down to that main event at WrestleMania 31 and makes it a triple threat.
Miles.
Yeah, he was running for fucking ages.
It's like that Monty Python thing where the dude's just running towards the castle.
It is. It is. I mean, going into this, Lesnar versus Reigns was already a good match, but I think they realised that Reigns wasn't getting over the way they wanted him to get over. So they decided, apparently this was decided on the day of WrestleMania 31, which makes this even better because Roman had put his family in the front row and wasn't told about the finish, and neither were his family. So his family were of the impression that he was going to walk away champion, only for Seth to win it at the last minute. Apparently they had to stop Roman's family from kicking off after WrestleMania, which...
Oh Christ, imagine a bunch of angry Samoans.
Just like launched over the barrier.
Just take out Seth. But no, this moment is iconic. This moment has so many iconic images. The running with the suitcase, the actual giving it to the referee, and then Seth standing at the top of the ramp with the belt held in the air. It was fantastic. It was the first person to cash in his contract at WrestleMania. Not just at WrestleMania, but in the main event of WrestleMania. And I will just point out, at this point, he is a heel. He was the heel in WWE. And the eruption of noise. We talked about the Ziggler pop earlier, and I still stand by the fact that is one of the biggest Raw After Mania pops. But if that was the Raw After Mania pop, this was the WrestleMania pop. At least in living memory. This was fucking
in
epic.
Living memory, there's only been so many WrestleManias.
Well, I wasn't alive for the first three, dickhead.
Yeah, but it's not like World War One where basically everyone who experienced that is dead.
Whoa. Before World War One?
Well,
but in living memory, it wasn't a fucking historic war.
Sorry, Chris. I don't think you remember WrestleMania 29.
Anyway,
If ever there was a WrestleMania to compare to a global tragedy, it is WrestleMania 29.
Well, this is WrestleMania 31.
I'm making a point.
No, children. No.
But okay, well, people seem to forget the run up to this match. Well, not forget, but like what we haven't neglected to mention was like how much Roman was being booed, like how wrestlers almost got mugged on the way out of the Royal Rumble 2015 because of how angry fans were. Like the Usos literally almost got mugged, and then you have the like boos, like constant boos. It's like Vince McMahon going out. Are you saying moo? There's Hans Momans in the front row going, I was saying moo. But yeah, like, so they booked themselves as an absolute corner. Because you either have keep the title on Lesnar, where it's not going to be on TV, and it hasn't been on TV in a while. And back then, that was a weird thing to happen. And no, like, nowadays, that's just the norm. So they didn't have any options. The thought of Seth even cashing it in was impossible because Dean Ambrose kept beating him. So like the perfect storm happened where Dean Ambrose was in a ladder match early in the night and got murdered. And then there seems to be a running thing where someone holding a briefcase loses a high profile match to a member of Evolution earlier in the night. They're probably going to cash in because Seth lost to Randy Orton. And then ran in and cashed in. And to be fair, the match beforehand, because we actually reviewed this match on the classic segment last year, was great. It was a really good, hard-hitting match. It's probably one of the best examples of the modern Brock Lesnar fought. It's probably his Reigns' best match overall, to be fair, and it's probably the best example of the modern-day Lesnar formula, without being in there with someone who's insanely amazing like Styles or Bryan.
I think that one, it was a case of like they both just said, right, let's just go as hard as we can.
Yeah, let's just murder each other and like see how that goes. But yeah, like how desperate Seth looks when he gets in, like how it's like this is happening now, and I'm just
maniacal look on his face.
Yeah, it's not just maniacal, but he's maniacal when he's coming in, but as soon as he's in the moment, he's panicking. Like, there's no... Like, he can't hide it behind a sneer. He was like, oh fuck, especially when his first curb stomp gets broken up. Because, like, he was like, right, I can't pin Lesnar. No one's pinning Lesnar. I have to go for Reigns. So it was like, curb stomps Lesnar out. So, like, it booked himself out the corner because they had a champion that people were excited to see. Roman could have a little redemption arc, and then the Lesnar, your unstoppable monster, hasn't actually been beaten. So, as opposed to now where he's been beaten by like 10 different people, but you know.
And it was like the perfect intermania. Well, sort of.
Yeah, but kind of. There's no Tai Chi involved, but you know, there's only so much you can do on WWE's budget, so.
I think it was the best that they could do with that main event. Chris, you've mentioned the Royal Rumble 2015, which was a car crash. Because obviously...
that match literally caused Justin Gabriel to quit because they gave his spot away to the Boogeyman.
I mean, I think I'd quit if my spot was given away to a person whose main gimmick is to eat worms.
Yeah. Could, of course, Justin Gabriel be only... proud African person who's not a racist gimmick, as covered on the last Young Way.
But yeah, no, we didn't really want to see Lesnar as the champion. His contract was up, so people knew he was dropping it. People just assumed it would be 2 Reigns, who they weren't behind.
Then, like 2 days before, it was announced there was an extension. That he just signed for until 33, and then they did the same thing at 33.
Mm-hmm.
So to then have Seth cash in the way that he did, in a unique way that he did, in the unique way he did it, it was the perfect way to end that WrestleMania. Yes, it was a heel winning and a heel standing tall, which, as we know, Vince doesn't like when it comes to WrestleManias, but for this, WWE successfully managed to book themselves out of the ridiculous corner they booked themselves into in the first place.
And it was for a lot of people, like, for example, the Brock Lesnar will he leave to do UFC trope has been basically the story of, the last 5 Manias? I mean, we said from, 32, 33, it was a thing, 34 was a thing, 35 was a thing, and it's sort of stop. Just stop. And then, the Shield into play, that wasn't quite tired yet, because Seth versus Roman wasn't a feud that happened yet. And, yeah, just there was an overall sense of optimism, especially with the night after Mania, because Neville came up, Cena started his open challenge. 2015 started really good. It didn't end very good. But, the middle was decent. You had the terrifying highs, the lowest of lows, but then a really creamy middle.
Nice.
And did you just say nice because of the cream? Just because of the creamy bit?
He likes a creamy middle.
And on that bombshell, ladies and gentlemen, that is our countdown of our top 6 cash-ins. Now, did we miss any out in your opinion? Tell us how you loved Sheamus in 2015 and how you loved Damian Sandows and Jack Swagger in the comments. Whilst you're doing that, subscribe to the podcast. You can find us on all podcasting platforms. Please leave us a review. Subscribe to the podcast. It really helps us out. You can talk to us on Twitter at PodMania. Join the new Facebook group, PodMania Podcasts. And yeah, you can talk to me on Twitter at RealRobGoodwin. Where can they find you, Garth?
Garthmania.
That was a deceptively good impression. And Chris, where can they find you?
Underneath the landslide in a champagne supernova in the sky. And Bushi on Twitter.
I was just going to say, I don't think that fits as a Twitter handle. I'll be perfectly honest.
Some of the characters.
Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys again soon.
You've been listening to the PodMania Pro Wrestling Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at PodMania, Facebook at PodMania Podcasts, and YouTube and Instagram at Real PodMania. And check out the website podmania.co.uk. Until next time, wrestling fans.